The wildest part of the Caitlin Clark era isn't just the fouls, the ratings, or the culture war around her. It's the feeling that there is something bigger happening behind the scenes, something the league will never put in a press release. Across the last 2 seasons, every controversy around Clark has followed the same pattern. She takes a hit, fans erupt, the league office goes quiet, and then leadership shows up at a podium talking about calibration and stakeholders instead of actually defending the player who changed their business overnight. That pattern is the foundation for why so many fans now believe there's a coordinated effort, not from one rogue referee, but from the very top of the WNBA, to control, manage, and in some ways, silence their biggest star. If you put the incidents in order, the story gets even more uncomfortable. First came the physical play and officiating firestorms, from viral clips of Clark taking hard contact to full-on YouTube breakdowns asking if refs were being used as a weapon to put her in her place. That ref breaks silence narrative, built on videos analyzing missed calls, referee body language, and alleged directives about Clark, trained fans to look for a shadowy hand controlling how games were called. Then the focus moved higher, past the officials and straight to the commissioner's office, where Cathy Engelbert suddenly found herself accused not just of mishandling officiation, but of privately downplaying Clark's importance and resenting how much of the spotlight she owned. On the record, Engelbert presents a very different picture. Before the finals, she stood in front of reporters and insisted she cares deeply about every player, promising to do better and acknowledging that there's a disconnect between what players feel on the floor and how the league is officiated. She talked about refs as vital to the game, vowed to review officiation in the offseason, and even announced a new task force to address concerns about how physical the league has become. Those are the words of a commissioner trying to project stability and responsiveness, but those same pressers are exactly where fans feel the tension. Big corporate language at the microphone, while the product on the floor tells a very different, more chaotic story around Clark. That's where Napheesa Collier's statement hit like a bomb. The Minnesota Lynx star publicly described a private conversation in which she says Engelbert essentially told players they should be grateful for what the league provides, specifically pointing to Clark's endorsement deals as proof of how much opportunity the W creates. Collier's version painted a commissioner minimizing player grievances and using Clark's popularity as a talking point to push back on player frustrations. Engelbert, for her part, later denied making the most inflammatory comments, calling Collier's account inaccurate and saying she never told Clark or anyone else to thank their lucky stars. But once a trusted veteran like Collier goes public, fans start reading every quote from the commissioner through a different lens. Caitlin Clark herself sits right in the middle of that tension. She told reporters that Collier raised valid issues about leadership and accountability, and she also revealed that Engelbert hadn't reached back out to her after their private conversation suddenly became national news. That detail matters. For fans who already believe the league is afraid of Clark's power, the idea that the commissioner went silent after their chat leaked fits perfectly into a narrative that the front office wants to manage her, not empower her. The league's most important player saying she hasn't heard from the person in charge while a labor fight and officiation questions swirl around her feels less like a misunderstanding and more like a cold distance. At the same time, a different storyline is running alongside all of this: the business reality. The current CBA expired in January 2026. Negotiations have been tense, and stars across the league have spoken publicly about feeling undervalued and unheard. Clark, despite missing significant time in 2025 with a groin injury, still drives ratings, sponsorships, and national attention at a level the WNBA has never seen. That creates a brutal paradox for the league office. They need her star power to break revenue records and win TV deals, but they also have to manage a locker room full of veterans who don't want one rookie's popularity to dictate every decision. That's where conspiracy theories thrive, in the gap between what's said in official statements and what fans see with their own eyes. The ref breaks silence style videos have weaponized that gap. Creators went frame by frame through games involving Clark, highlighting hard hits, missed whistles, and strange inconsistencies in how she was officiated compared to other stars. They pulled in social media posts, old quotes from legends like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops about respecting veterans, and clips of players brushing off Clark's fans as illegitimate. Then they stitched it all into a simple storyline. Someone, somewhere up the chain, wants Clark policed, humbled, and kept from running the league. Once that story took off, every foul and every no call started to feel like evidence. To understand why that narrative hits so hard, you have to zoom out and look at Clark's entire journey. In college at Iowa, she wasn't just a star, she was a ratings cheat code. Final Four numbers rivaled NBA playoff games, her logo threes dominated social feeds, and arenas turned into traveling road shows every time she came to town. When Indiana drafted her, it wasn't just a basketball decision, it was a business move that transformed the Fever into a national brand overnight, selling out road games and rewriting what WNBA ticket demand looked like. That kind of rise always creates friction. Veterans who've been grinding for years suddenly watched one rookie reset the marketplace in real time. That's the emotional backdrop to every hard foul, every skeptical quote from an older star, and every moment Clark looks at a ref in disbelief. Fans aren't just reacting to a single hit in the lane, they're reacting to the feeling that the old guard, from players to front office to league leadership, never fully accepted that this 20-something guard from Iowa became the face of the WNBA in less than 12 months. When the commissioner doesn't step in loudly and clearly to protect that face, even if only rhetorically, it feeds the idea that there's a quiet approval of the pushback against her. Then you layer in the CBA fight. Clark has talked about how important it is to salvage the 2026 season and find a deal that works for everyone. At the same time, reports out of those negotiations describe real tension between the players' union and the league over revenue sharing, travel, salaries, and respect. Clark sits in a strange position. She is the player owners point to when they argue the league is growing and opportunity is exploding, but she is also living proof of how much money is being left on the table. Her jersey sales, TV numbers, and sponsorships show the ceiling, and that makes any hesitation from leadership to fully back her look less like caution and more like fear of how much leverage she represents. That's why fans talk about a secret memo, not because they've seen it, but because it neatly explains the mess. If you believe there's a directive from the top to treat Clark like everyone else, to avoid special treatment, or even to keep the focus on the league, not one player, then a lot of uncomfortable decisions suddenly feel intentional. Tough officiating? That's the memo. Soft public defense of her after controversies? That's the memo. A commissioner arguing she has to balance Clark's interests with those of 11 other players on every roster? That's the memo. It becomes a story fans can tell themselves when the reality feels too chaotic and contradictory. But here's the hard truth. There is no leaked document, no screenshot, no whistleblower from inside the league office confirming a written plan to silence Caitlin Clark. Mainstream outlets that have dug into the Clark controversies have focused on culture clashes, physical play, and CBA tensions, not on any provable conspiracy ordered from the top of the org chart. The creators pushing the secret memo angle tend to rely on ominous music, suggestive phrasing, and circumstantial patterns rather than actual reporting. The story is compelling because it feels true emotionally, not because it's supported by hard evidence. What is supported by evidence is the communication failure. Collier's public comments made clear that at least some stars feel dismissed by leadership. Engelbert's follow-up interviews show a commissioner more focused on defending her intent than admitting how her words landed. Clark's acknowledgement that she hasn't heard back from Engelbert since that private conversation suddenly became national news underscores a real distance between the league's biggest draw and its top executive. Add in years of players complaining about travel, pay, and marketing, and you don't need a secret memo to understand why trust is broken. Officiating is the other piece the league can't hide from. Games involving Clark have sparked some of the biggest online debates in WNBA history, with clips going viral on both sides of the argument. Some fans argue she gets hit more because she plays more minutes, handles the ball more, and is targeted by defenses like any superstar. Others say the volume of hard contact, combined with the way some opponents talk about her, crosses the line into something more personal. When the league's response is mostly vague language about letting the game breathe and not over-officiating, it leaves a vacuum that the conspiracy crowd is more than happy to fill. So where does that leave the idea that Engelbert and the league are actively trying to silence Caitlin Clark? If what you mean is that they want to shut her up, keep her from speaking out about issues, and make sure she doesn't use her platform, the facts don't really support that. Clark continues to speak to media, do national interviews, advocate for salvaging the season, and address controversies in her own words. She hasn't been fined into silence, banned from touching certain topics, or reprimanded for speaking her mind. The league uses her in marketing and celebrates her achievements because they know exactly how valuable she is. But if what you mean is that the league is trying to drown her influence in corporate messaging, to absorb her into the brand, instead of reshaping the league around what she represents, then the criticism starts to land. Fans see leadership slow to defend her, quick to talk about all 12 players, and always ready to pivot from specific incidents to vague, big-picture talking points. In that sense, it can absolutely feel like a soft, strategic silencing. Less about gag orders and more about diluting her singular power in the name of institutional stability. The bigger question going forward isn't whether there was ever a memo. It's whether the WNBA is willing to admit that its communication style, its officiating product, and its leadership posture have not kept up with the speed and intensity of the Caitlin Clark era. Clark has already said the quiet part out loud. The 2026 season can't be wasted, the league has to find a way to move forward, and everyone involved needs to understand how high the stakes are. If the commissioner's office keeps acting like this is business as usual, the gap between what fans feel and what leadership says will only get wider. For Engelbert and the league, the path out of this isn't a denial of conspiracies, it's a reset. Clear, specific statements about player safety, transparent follow-up when controversies erupt, direct, ongoing communication with union leaders and with stars like Clark, not just one-off conversations that vanish into silence. That's what real leadership looks like in a league where every whistle, every quote, and every negotiation becomes content in minutes. In that world, the only memo that matters is the one the league writes with its actions. Protect your stars, respect your veterans, tell the truth clearly even when it hurts. If the WNBA can do that, the conspiracy era around Caitlin Clark will fade on its own. If it can't, fans will keep believing that somewhere in a league office there's a piece of paper that says exactly what they've suspected all along, and no denial from the commissioner's podium will be enough to change their minds.